Okay, so this is coming from MO 103, which is one of our big first year courses, so 220-ish students. We have every week some piece of formative work due in, plus we have about 5 pieces of optional work per term, which are more aimed at students doing research. And as we just heard, this means there is a lot of work to do, and I want to sort of focus on how do we do feedback in a way that makes that manageable. So first off, I think it wouldn't work if we were just giving this form of feedback. So we have talking about exercises within classes, we have office hours as everybody does, we have 10 hours per week of Maths Support Centre, and we don't use Slack, but we do have an anonymous forum on the Moodle, and last year that had 230 or so threads, so this is kind of, a lot of the feedback is going there. Okay, but this particular thing that's on screen is an example of one of the pieces of optional, essentially, research. Students have submitted something, and I've started giving comments, most of which are sort of longer paragraphs. You can go through the slides, you can type in the paragraph. And if I go to the next people, I'm going to sort of go through this a little bit quickly. At some point you start noticing that these longer paragraphs I'm typing, they're repeating quite often. So there is a paragraph, this one for example, which you've seen twice already. And essentially Gradescope is letting me say, I need to give some feedback, but one way I can do it is to click somewhere and start typing some keyword, and then I notice, okay, I've typed this paragraph before, and now I can just put the whole paragraph into Gradescope. Okay, so this is essentially making it possible for me to write relatively personalised feedback and put comments to all of the students' work, but without having to spend a lot of time actually writing out the same piece of text over and over again. Okay, so let me quickly move to this year's course. So this is my personal class for this week's work. 30 out of 30 students have submitted work because it counts summatively for the course. And this piece of work, students need to get a grade for it. And there is a rubric written here over on the right, which is sort of not very long, but some things in it are sort of standard. This item, for example, is saying this student is not writing a proof in a way I like, and I'm going to ask them to read a certain document to think about it. There are also things which are sort of specific to this question. So this is something where I think a student has made a certain specific error. And again, I can put comments which are personalised. So here I'm saying on a particular line something has gone wrong. I've said something and I've linked it to a rubric item. And again, this is just going to allow me to put a relatively large amount of feedback. So here I have 30 students, each of which have submitted 4 questions for this week. And more or less I'm just saying I have enough time to write a reasonable amount of feedback on each piece of work without it taking me hours and hours and hours. Okay, so this is the plus side of Gradescope. It's giving students a lot of fairly personal feedback. This paragraph, for example, I've copied in, but I can alter it online and make it specific to this one student anytime I want to. The minus side of Gradescope is there is a reasonable amount of learning curve to set up. Eden Digital have a good guide to how to set up as a course convener. What's maybe missing is how to deal with assigning an entire course to different class groups. I'd be quite happy to collaborate with Chris on providing some Excel tools to do that. Otherwise, I think that's about all I want to say. This is what Gradescope looks like, and this is what we are using it for.
Okay. Just on that last point that Peter made, Antonio knows about this as well, is that currently the integration between Gradescope and Moodle doesn't recognise the groups that are on Moodle, so therefore if you want to assign teachers to teach in groups, you kind of have to do a kind of a... Antonio has a kind of a semi-automatic workaround for...
It takes 2 minutes, really.
Yeah, yeah.
Download, please, delete.
I have probably a similar semi-automatic. It takes about 3 or 4 minutes to get the groups from Moodle and re-upload them to Gradescope, so it's not a problem, except if this is your first time and you think you have to do 200 students each individually by hand.
Yeah. So it's a bit daunting at the start, but it can be overcome. Sorry, Lee.
Can I just ask, does Gradescope allow you to export the feedback comments in any kind of structured form? In the grades as well, in fact.
It's really, there is something, it does not work brilliantly. It really is best if the student is looking at these comments as they appear on the screen. In particular, this comment I've made here, for example, it's supposed to refer to this line. If I export it in Gradescope, I believe I can export just a PDF with this comment there, although then the comments kind of hide the text. But if I just export comments, then the student will see this comment was made somewhere on the page, but it's kind of important where the comment is. So this doesn't do very well.
Are you thinking ahead to your presentation? Right, okay, yeah.
So I wonder, it's sort of the same question but different, if there's any way at the end to get a summary for you of which paragraphs you used a lot. Okay, on 25 of my submissions, I told them their proofs were badly structured. That means I need to go back and tell everybody, you need to look at the proofing.
Yes, so I can see after the fact these rubric items, which ones did I use, how often. I can see things like grade distribution. I can't conveniently see which explicit paragraph have I used very often. This is actually not a bad thing because I will usually say I have a longer paragraph I paste in 20 times and 15 of those times I change it because the student used a different letter to the one I thought they were going to use. So it's a little bit personalised. I don't think the system would be willing to recognise this as essentially that's the same paragraph 20 times.
Yeah, one question, Peter. Can the students reply or respond to any of the feedback they receive? Is that a feature?
In principle, they can. In particular, there is an option to do regrade requests. For this course, we've said that we want students to do this either on the anonymous form where everybody can see at this point what we answer to, or to come to Maths Support Centre or office hours, because at some point it's, at least for a maths course, very inefficient to keep trying to type answers in response. Students in particular have trouble typing their question precisely, and it works better in office hours or Maths Support Centre. And as I say, I don't think it would work if this was the only feedback for the courses. Fits in with other bits of feedback that are available.
Are there any other questions? So just show of hands out, a bit of preaching to the converted, but how many people in the room use Gradescope as it is? Tugan and Antonio. Yeah, okay. And continuing to use it and happy to use it?
Yes, I find it quite facilitating the easy feedback and marking process.
And you use it, Tugan, for the programming assignments, do you?
We're not using it for the programming assignments.
Yeah.
I think in maths, right?
Yeah, my course has programming in it still, but I also have problem sets that are just exercises or problems.
Mm-hmm.
So they submit PDF files of what they write or type and then give feedback similar to the.
Okay, good. Okay, great. Thanks a million, Peter. We'll let you get on with your day. So next up we've got Gillian and Kristen.